Hi, my name's Charlie Easton. I'm a professional landscape painter. Welcome to my super messy studio. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Opus ranges of paintbrushes and what they do for me and possibly what they can do for you. You can apply paint in all sorts of different ways. You can use palette knives, you can use scrapers, you can use your hands, you can use anything you like. But one of the reasons I think people keep coming back to paintbrushes is because they've got such a softness to them. They've got such a personality. So what you need to do is you need to figure out which paintbrush or which set of paintbrushes gives you that handwriting or that signature that becomes uniquely you. You can find ones through experimentation that start to translate that vision that you have in your head onto the canvas. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the lines that Opus has now so you can understand the different paintbrushes from the softest to the stiffest. And the softest is definitely these Arietta brushes. And they're really beautiful for doing, you know, soft work, either early or late in a painting. When I'm more in the middle of a painting, I want something stiffer. And when you go to the stiffest end of the Opus line, you'll be looking at the mezzo brushes. And these mezzo ones are great in acrylic or in oil, and you can really lay it down thick and they produce a lovely textural element to your work. The second softest would be these legato ones, and they have a lightness to them that works really well, just like the Ariettas. I find they hold up just a bit better than the Ariettas in terms of if I'm, you know, really starting to work a painting and I'm getting all energetic in it. These have got, they come back into shape really nicely. The next level up in terms of stiffness, but just below the mezzo, is the Denman. And I absolutely love these because this is a kind of if you're going to talk about a one brush that does it all, it's probably the Denman. It's got a stiffness to it, but it also has a softness that provides a lovely flick at the end of each of your marks. In terms of shapes, sometimes it's obvious. If you want a really fine line, you're going to need to go for a very fine shaped brush, one with a real tip to it, and then you can get that really lovely chiseled line that you might want to have in your painting. Other times you might want to be laying down an area and getting a lot of coverage, so you might go for a softer brush, you might go for a round or a filbert, and these hold a lot of paint in them. And so, you know, similarly, anything that has a longer hair, you're going to get more paint within the hairs, so you can put it down more. And so if I'm trying to get a lot of coverage, I'll go for a bigger brush, and I'll probably go for a filbert or a really long-haired flat. When it comes to more my detailed work, that's when I really like to have a brush that is kind of, yeah, like these angled ones. You can start to chisel in both your positive shapes and your negative shapes in order to create the form of whatever it is you're painting. The accuracy that you can get with kind of a medium length haired brush, I particularly like the angled ones, is really great. And so you can do that if you're doing it in really opaque paint. I would go with a slightly stiffer brush like the mezzo and the Denman, or if you're doing it early stages and you're maybe creating, let's say, the canopy of trees that sits behind a scene, then you can do it in a softer brush like in the Legato or the Arietta. Okay, I've done enough talking. I'm going to show you how these work. So I'm working on this mountain scene here. I'm just starting to mark in some edges of shapes, and I'm using a very thin Arietta brush here. It's very soft, and what it does is it kind of skips over the surface really nicely. So if I want to create something that has a bit of space and a bit of air in it, this is a lovely brush to do that with. The soft brushes like the Ariettas are great for holding a lot of paint within them and depositing it in a kind of a very flat area. And because I'm working on the tooth of the canvas right now, just for this initial pass, I'm using a thin brush because right now I'm still working in line. And then as soon as I want to go and start working in shape, which I'll do for the majority of the painting, I will move up to a larger brush. So here we are. We're now going to go into this larger filbert from the Arietta range. and I'm going to be able to get some good coverage here. Okay, now I'm going to mix up a glaze just in my little pot here. And I'm going to be doing this in a kind of a magenta-y orange, quite warm one. I want to cover the surface of the canvas. And so I'm making this very fluid and I'm using a very soft brush. Again, a large Arietta that I will be applying this to the canvas, trying to get really good coverage over the sky and over the mountains. Often I'll do this when it's the painting is lying flat, and that you're able to then get make sure that the gloss medium that's part of this glaze sits within all of the holes and the cavities of the tooth of the canvas. So now I've got my glaze on, I've done that in the softest brushes, and I'm now going to move up one step to a slightly harder brush. This is the Legato, and we're going to have a little bit more flick. This again, I'm using a large brush because I want to hold a lot of paint in here. And I'm going to go back over these shadow patterns that I've been developing. The softness in these brushes really helps in order to be able to get that coverage. And the angle of the brush, the edges, means that I can cover an area, do a large shape like this, but also I can turn the brush sideways and still get some form of line. I'm going to use the same brush to sling in the sky so you can just start to see where the relief is. So now as I start going into the rocks in sunlight, I really want to make that feel nice and warm. I also want you to focus on that rock in light, and so I'm going to be starting to work more opaquely in thicker paint. And for that I'm using the Denman line. There's my trusty 1-inch angled. It's got a lot more spring to it, can hold tons of paint, and I'm going to get a few more of those like happy accidents where the brush is starting to splay interestingly and put down paint, leaving texture that will draw the eye. Okay, so now I've got the semblance of a painting here, and just fast forwarding, this is when I would use something like a really stiff mezzo brush. Because what this is going to allow me to do is get some really lovely peaks and troughs on my paint, and is going to create some lovely textural elements that are going to draw the eye. So I really want to slam in some of the highlights on the snow here, and I'm going to do that using this with tons of paint. Now if I want something softer to go in, to soften edges, I've downgraded my stiffness back down to the Denmans. And so then now I can go in and just rub over the top of the surface. And I'm not going to be drawing your eye by doing this because it's a soft brush, or it's softer than that mezzo that put down the hard white. And then of course, if I want to make sure that I have a couple of really tight, really narrow lines, I'll go to something very thin. This one actually is a very thin little filbert, and I'm just going to pull out a couple of tiny little highlights using the smaller level of brush. So there we go. By no means a finished painting, but it's a good start. And hopefully that's given you a bit of a sense on how I choose different brushes for different applications. Obviously, the Opus range is enormous, and it really covers off every kind of artist and everything that you want to do. But you're not going to have every single brush in your quiver. I have chosen the ones that work for me, and it's up to you to figure out which ones out of this set will work for you to turn your paintings into pieces that speak to your artistic vision and to the ones that you feel comfortable with. So good luck with finding that. Go to Opus website, go to the stores, check them out, and see which brushes work for you. Thanks for watching.